Oh my god.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We're back in Vegas and I'm running a little bit late, so I'm kind of doing this intro while I'm stopped at a traffic light. The intro you just saw was from a place called Arcadia Earth, which is an art installation slash environmental activism, and it's right next to the MGM on the Strip. I really love showing you guys places like this around Vegas that are off the beaten path. If you haven't been to this one, I highly recommend checking it out. We got here in record time at the Wynn, so I'm gonna jump into this 300. If I bust that, I'm gonna grind cash. Let's do it. Well, the bad news is we got our aces cracked by King 10 suited a few hours into it. The good news is this happened after registration closed, so only lost one bullet, $300, just like that. Now it's time to head over to the cash game, put my name on the list for the 2-5. When it's my time to finally get involved, Under the Gun limps, and I'm on the button with Ace King offsuit. So I make it $30 to go, and when it folds around to him, he tosses in the call. This opponent is one of those guys that I think is a recreational player. He's been drinking a lot of margaritas, stuff like that. Gives you a clue that they're probably just here to have fun. The two of us see a flop of 8-8 deuce, 2 spades, and a heart. He checks it over to me, and this is a board texture I'm going to be c-betting a lot. And when you're c-betting a lot, you don't really need to go that big. So I bet $20, and he makes the call. I think if he had low pocket pairs or spades, he will continue. So that's kind of what I'm putting him on going forward. And I don't actually mind if he calls with those hands because I can put a lot of pressure on them moving forward in the hand. The turn comes out a queen of diamonds. He checks it to me again, and this is one of those cards I'm gonna bet big and put a lot of pressure on him. And that's what I do. I go $80 into a pot of 112. He takes quite a bit, but eventually he does lay it down. Even though it was a small bluff, it's a nice confidence boost to get it through right at the beginning of the session. And right away, I get Ace King again, very next hand. The low jack player limps a lot, and she does the same in this one. She just calls for $5, and I'm in the cutoff this time, and I make it 25 to go. Small blind is one of those players that I think is a pro. He's got all the trappings of a pro. It looks like he's almost set up camp at this table, and he's been here for a long time, and he does it every day. He 3-bets to 100. Low jack quickly folds, and when it's back to me, I have a decision between 4-bet and call. I'm in position, and I think that the boards that I hit, I will get paid on because he will try to represent those cards, so I just make the call. The flop comes out 9-8-5, 2 spades and a diamond, and my opponent checks. I think he's probably going to check this a lot because it will be something that hits me a little more often than him. He does have all the overpairs, but this is a board where I would raise 8s, 9s, and potentially 5s in position against that limper pre-flop. So I have those hands. So I have a lot more of the nutted hands than he does. So I wasn't really sure what to do when he checked it over to me. I actually thought maybe I should just turn Ace King into a bluff. So that's what I did. I bet $70, which is about a third of the pot. And he was not letting me get away with this one. Not 2 in a row. He raises to $250. Not sure if I was supposed to c-bet that one, but that's results-oriented thinking. I think it's probably okay. I end up making the fold and moving on to the next one. I was still fumbling around with my phone trying to take notes on that hand when I get dealt pocket kings in the hijack. Under the Gun 2 is that same limper. She just calls pre. I am in the hijack now. I make it 25 to go. Same guy, the pro, on the button, 3-bets to 75. Under the Gun 2 folds, and when it's back to me, I only have 775. I 4-bet to 225. Want to make it a size where it looks like I can fold the remainder of my stack. He checks my stack one more time, makes sure I don't have more than he thought before he says, I'm all in. I obviously snap call. I'm really pumped. I'm just hoping he doesn't have aces.
Do you run it twice here?
No. As the dealer is dealing at the flop, I ask him if he wants to run it twice. He says he always runs it once, so that's what we're doing. Before the turn is put out, he says,
Oh, okay.
And my soul is crushed. The turn is a teaser card. It's a jack. The river is another paint card, but it's not the king. We don't suck out.
Nice hand, nice hand.
He stacks me for the full amount. Time to buy in for another 1,000. I don't even have my new set of chips yet when I get 8-7 spades, under the gun 2, raise it up to $15. The same guy from earlier with the margaritas, he makes the call on the button. So heads up, the flop is 9-7 deuce, 2 hearts and a club. So we flop middle pair, not the strongest hand, but I think that my opponent is going to play pretty straightforward against me. So that's why I check it over to him. He checks it back, and the turn is the 8 of hearts. We make 2 pair, but flushes, straights, stuff like that come in. I think he might have bet some of those draws on the flop, so I'm confident in this hand. I bet $25, hoping that I'll get a call from a hand that contains 1 heart, or that is just a 1 pair holding, or even a straight draw at this point. He does make the call, and the river is now the 10 of diamonds. A little bit dicey on that river. Not sure what I can be getting value from now with my hand, so I check it over to him, expecting him not to pull the trigger on a bluff too often, and he checks back. Flip over my 2 pair, and it is good. So this second buy-in, off to a good start. It almost feels like I have a clean slate after the cooler with kings to aces, because I just have a brand new, fresh stack. I'm just pretending in my mind that I just sat down to play. So as I'm settling into this new mindset of starting fresh, I get dealt a 10 and another 10. Very next hand. So I make it $15 to go. Under the gun 1 is a player that I cannot believe it took 5 hands to be in this vlog, but he 3-bets me to $75. Pretty big sizing, but he has done this a few times to other players. He's done it to me 1 time. One of those hands got to showdown, and I think it was button versus low jack, and he had 7-4 suited. So I don't know what his deal is, but he's going off. I have pocket 10s. It's an easy call, I think. I don't want to 4-bet and then have to make a decision for a 200 big blind pot with pocket 10s, so I just make the call. The flop comes down ace 9 deuce rainbow. Check it over to him playing in flow, and he c-bets a small amount. He bets $65. I think he's going to be c-betting this a lot. I like to call these like a lockdown board. Not much going forward is going to change the texture, and I think on those types of boards, sometimes he's just going to be a one and done type post flop line. So I make the call and keep my fingers crossed that he just checks it down to the river. The turn is a queen of spades. I check, and he quickly checks this one back. The river is a 7 of spades. Sticking with my plan, just trying to get to showdown and hoping that he's giving up. A lot of people have been folding to his aggression pre-flop, so maybe the fact that I stuck around is giving him pause at this point. I check, he checks it back, and kind of not surprised, maybe a little still surprised to see him show up with king queen offsuit.
Hi, Sam.
Very ambitious 3-bet pre-flop, but I guess he's getting away with it and not gonna let that happen anymore. We're gonna start throwing in a lot more 4-bets against this guy and really sticking it to him going forward. By the way, did you guys notice that in the first hour, literally nothing happened? And in these past 15 minutes, all these hands happened back to back. It's crazy sometimes how that works in poker, but it just goes to show that in the downtimes when you're not picking up hands, just stay patient. That way, when you do pick up the hands, you're ready for them. The game has now become a 2-5-10 game. Not a mandatory straddle, but most people are doing it at this point. Margarita Man is under the gun, and he does his favorite thing, which is to call for $10. Under the gun 1 is a new player. He makes the call. I am in the cutoff with pocket 5s, and this is a hand I'm gonna just call. The button is the guy from the 10s hand. I'm just waiting for him to do something nuts. It was actually a button straddle, so the both of the blinds folded. Just as a quick aside, if you're not familiar with button straddles, how it works at the Wynn is if nobody has raised by the time it's gotten to the button, they don't act until after the blinds act. A little bit confusing, but that's as best as I can put it. So in this case, that's what happened. It's on him, and he decides to check his option. The 4 of us see a flop of king, queen, 8, 2 hearts, and a diamond. Obviously not the flop we want, but when it checks around, the dealer puts out a 5 right on the turn. So we bank right on the turn, set of 5s, and checks around to me again. So now I'm feeling a little disappointed, like nobody has anything, but I'm still gonna obviously put out a bet, and I wanna go big. So I bet $30 into 47. Button and Margarita Man get out of there, and the new player who's under the gun 1 makes the call. The river is the ace of spades. Not sure what this changes really, unless he had jack 10 that he didn't bet on the flop or turn. So when he checks it to me, I'm going for a value. I bet pretty large again. I bet $80. He almost snap calls me and sees the bad news that I do have a set. He lays it down. Welcome to the table, sir. I'm still struggling to dig myself out of this hole when Margarita Man is under the gun and actually raises this time. He makes it $30 to go. Remember, we are straddling at this point. I'm in the cutoff and have pocket jacks. I just called this one. I actually, he had been limping almost every single hand. So when he finally does raise, it looks really strong. So even if I have jacks, I'm just going to call this one because I think he's a lot tighter than normal here. It goes heads up. The dealer puts out 8-6 deuce rainbow on the flop. Margarita Man bets $40. I just make the call. The turn is a 9 of spades and he checks it over to me this time. So I'm pretty confident in my hand and he only has around $265 back. I guess I didn't realize he was so short pre, but I don't think I would have changed my decision either way. So I go 80 on this turn. It's about half pot. I don't need to go much bigger than that based on his stack size. So I bet 80. He doesn't take too long before sticking the rest in. I was pretty surprised. I thought that he would bet hands that he wanted to go with himself. So when he check jams, I think that it's a pretty strong hand. I have jacks, I'm not going to fold, so I stick in the call. And before we turn over our hand, the river is a jack of spades. So now I'm definitely thinking we're good, and he is not happy. He's not happy because guess what, you guys? We sucked out on his pocket aces. He is quite upset. He says some things to me that I couldn't quite make out. So after he left, I asked the dealer, what was he saying? And dealer translates it as...
He was saying, I'm upset because I just lost my aces on the river.
Okay. So with that, I'm getting a lot of momentum now. I'm on the button with Queen 10 offsuit. It's another straddled pot, so I make it $30 to go. The small blind is the guy that has been 3-betting everybody. He had that King Queen off against me earlier. He takes a little while, but he finally lands on calling from the small blind. So I've got my eye on him because he did take a while. It looked like maybe he was deciding between 3-bet or call, but I'm not going to read too much into that. He might have just been deciding between fold and call. The flop is Queen 10-3 rainbow. We smash it, top 2 pair against the guy who is being a quite aggressive opponent. He checks it over to me. I bet $20. I know it looks small, but I kind of smashed this board. There's really not much going on, and I'm not really scared of too many runouts. So I bet $20, and he makes the call pretty quickly. The turn is a 3 of hearts. So that is a great card for me. It's a pretty big brick. I bet $75 now, upping my size always on the turn. He makes the call. The river is an 8 of diamonds. So if he had a hand like King Jack or Jack 9, that gets there, but I'm not going to be scared of that unless he gives me reason to. So when he checks it over to me, I confidently put out a bet of $200 into 265. Pretty large sizing, but I do want to get called by a queen, and if he has a straight or somehow a boat, he's going to raise and I can happily get away from it. So put in $200 and he goes into the tank. 2 full minutes he's thinking about this spot. He does a lot of chip dance. He's moving around his chips. He's looking at me. He's looking at my stack. All these things are going through my head, and I just tried to focus on my breathing and not give away anything. And finally, he tosses in those 2 black chips, indicating a call. I flip over my hand and he says,
almost laid down. Almost. Very close. Very close.
So with that, I'm down less than $400. So things are looking up. 10 minutes later, it's round 3 between me and this aggressive 3-better. I'm under the gun with ace queen offsuit. I make it $30 to go. He is under the gun 1, my direct left, and makes it $125. Folds around to me, and this is a very familiar situation at this point. He 3-bets pretty much anytime he enters the pot, and like I said earlier, I'm going to be 4-betting this guy more often than not, and this is the perfect candidate of a hand to be doing it with. It doesn't play well out of position, especially offsuit variety. It blocks a lot of his best hands, having an ace and a queen in my hand, so I am going to 4-bet. I started this hand with $1,600 in my stack, and at a 2-5-10 table, that's about 160 bigs. So all that being said, I land on the number $325. What say you, under the gun 1? Well, he thinks for almost 2 full minutes about this $325 4-bet. Finally lands on just a call. So I'm very intrigued by this. I thought that he would amp up the aggression with his very best hands and that he would just fold his very worst hands. So I'm curious to see what he shows up with. But I think that it is pretty strong. On to the flop, dealer. She puts out a flop of 10, 6, 3, 2 clubs and a diamond. All right, so now we're in a spot. I think I'm just gonna continue my aggression. I bet $250. At this point, I look really strong. So ace king might just give up, especially if they don't have a club. The turn is the queen of diamonds. So now things are getting interesting because I make top pair, top kicker, but is it good? Like, let's think about this. He 3-bet called my one and only 4-bet against him pre-flop. Under the gun versus under the gun 1. Now on this flop, he just calls. And on the turn, I hit top pair, top kicker, but I have about a pot size jam left behind at this point. So it's really awkward because what size would I go to get value? I mean, do I just jam all in? What worse hand is gonna call me if I just jam all in? I don't think anything, to be honest. So I do decide to check for that reason. I don't think I'm getting called enough by worse. I think I have a pretty good read on this guy, and I'm just gonna stick to my gut and just pay attention to what happens on this turn and decide from there. He goes into the take for another 2.5 minutes, like a full 2 minutes. It was like that Tom Dwan clip where he just looks like his eyes are all like tearing up because he doesn't want to blink. That's how I felt in this moment. And I was just like praying that he checked back and that we could win somehow at Showdown. He was taking so long that I look over at one point and ask him.
I just want to make sure I checked, right? Oh.
He nods and then immediately puts out a $500 chip. Interesting. So instead of just jamming for the pot size, he only bets out a little less than half of my remaining stack. Now this is such a tough spot. It's like I'm getting a good price, but he knows he's giving me a good price. So I thought, all right, if he had a flush draw, which I have a queen of clubs, by the way, so that takes away a couple of the things he would have pre-flop. If he was doing something like that and he wanted to maximize his fold equity, he would just jam all in and hope that I fold. If he didn't do that, I don't know why he would only bet $500. I think he would just check and try to get a free river or go all in. This, to me, actually looked stronger. And I don't really know how to describe it. It just seemed like after such a long tank and then finally landing on this number that he was not trying to get me off of anything. Like he wanted me to hang in there. But am I really gonna 4-bet ace queen, c-bet this flop and then just fold the turn? That's what I end up doing. I do. I just folded the turn. I was like, okay, I feel like he has kings or aces or pocket queens. He would never do this with pocket jacks, or he has pocket tens. Those are the hands that I thought he had. I thought he had a lot more value than he had bluffs in this spot. I thought for a little while, and he even asked me.
Nice hand. Feel like you got it this time.
You want to see my hand?
Yeah.
So then he goes, if you tip the dealer $10, I'll show you. So obviously I snap call that, give the dealer $10. And guess what, you guys? It was a correct fold. He had pocket kings. I was really, really, really happy with that fold because I got to see it. I get to sleep well tonight. I get to show you guys that he had it and not feel like just a complete idiot all the time on these vlogs. Yeah, very, very excited to see that. I feel like I saved 1,200 bucks. So even though we lost the hand and it was a huge pot, I feel like a winner in this one. 30 minutes later, I get ace queen suited in the low jack and make it $30 to go. The small blind is one of those guys that I was talking about earlier who are kind of in between pro and recreational. He obviously plays here a lot, but I don't think this is his main source of income. He makes it 125 to go from the small blind. I should say that he had been playing pretty tight up until this point, so that's my only read to go off of, those few things. I make the call, obviously with ace queen suited in position, it plays really well. Let's see a flop. The dealer puts out king, queen, jack, 2 spades, and a club. So a royal flush draw comes on the flop, plus middle pair to go with it, plus a straight draw. I mean, we just absolutely smashed this flop. It could almost not get any better of a draw. So when he bets $75, I have a decision about what I want to do. Do I want to raise here? Do I want to just call and move forward? I think I just have so much of the board that I want to just be calling at this point. And I have a ton of equity. It's going to be so easy to play going forward. So I want to keep in all of his potential bluffs. So I make the call. And then the turn is the 10 of spades, gin card. I make my first royal flush in my entire life playing live. I think even online too. I think this is my very first royal flush, and it's in spades. It's the best suit. Wow, this is really cool. In a 3-bet pot in a 2-5 game that's playing bigger than normal, it's just the dream scenario. So small blind actually continues this card. I was really shocked to see that. He puts out 125. Really small bet, about a little more than a quarter of the pot. You know, I think he has a lot of one card straights here with an ace after he 3-bets pre and continues for a small sizing on this turn. The problem with raising this turn that I thought in game was that it's really tough to balance that. I'm trying to make a decision that makes my opponents make the most mistakes. In other words, I'm trying to make his life the toughest. And I think that if I raise this turn and then, jam river, I'm making his life very easy to let him off the hook and fold his ace, which makes it straight right now. So if that's the case, and I don't really have a lot of bluffs, I think the things that come to mind are just an ace of spades king and an ace of spades queen, to be honest. Those are the offsuit combos that I would call that have an ace of spades in them pre-flop to his 3-bet. It's not too many combos, and I think that if I did have those, they would be so good that I might just call anyway. So it really leaves me with not a lot of things to be raising as a bluff on the turn. And if you don't have a lot of bluffs in a spot, it's probably not a good time to be raising your nutted hands. And it's like, I don't study royal flush draw spots online. I don't study quad spots very much online. They just don't come up that often. So I feel like a little bit in no man's land, but on the fly, those were my thoughts about the hand, especially because I also have the queen of spades. It's really hard to cooler him. I mean, unless he was 3-betting me with something like 9-8 of spades pre-flop, he just doesn't have a lot of flushes in this spot. So that was my decision point here. I know I talked a lot about it, but I think it was a major decision points that could go a couple of different ways. And this was just what I landed on. The river is the 6 of diamonds, a complete brick, and he doesn't slow down. He bets $200. Again, quite a tiny bet. There's $665 in the middle. He only bet less than a third of the pot. I have $1,000 behind on this river. No matter what, I'm raising. I have royal freaking flush. But what size do I go? It's really hard for him to have a flush. I have the ace and the queen of spades. So I don't think I'm getting called by those hands. So I have to assume that the only thing I'm getting called by when I raise is the naked ace. And if he's calling just to chop the pot and I go all in for 1,000, I think I'm just gonna get him to fold way too much. And I'm gonna, like I said, make his life really easy. So I landed on a slightly smaller than all-in size, which was $650. I thought that it was big enough that it could be a bluff, and that it was small enough that I didn't put so much pressure on him that he folds because he's only calling to win half the pot in his mind. But you guys, maybe I should have just gone all in because he snap puts in the chip. Before I could even finish saying 650, he snap put in the call. I show my royal flush and he's like, oh, is that all?
Yeah, royal.
Oh, royal crush.
In spades. This is
Yeah, I get paid off on my first royal flush ever live. Really, really fun. Highly recommend it. And for the first time this session, the little green arrow is up. I'm up $240. We've successfully climbed out of the hole. All it took was a royal flush. Half an hour later, the game is starting to die down a little bit when the hijack player, same lady who kept limping, does the same here. And I'm on the button with pocket queens. So I'm hoping to end this night on a high note because I'm ready to go eat and I make it $50 to go. The big blind is the pro from earlier who has 3-bet often and who I got kings versus aces against. 3-bets to $220 from the big blind. Straddle folds, hijack folds, it's on to me. We're about 400 big blinds effective. I have over $2,000 in my stack. He's got me well covered. I wasn't really sure what to do in this spot. He does 3-bet a bit from the blinds, but I didn't know if 4-betting was just bloating the pot. And so I marked it down in my phone to study these sort of like pre-flop spots a little better because for 400 big blinds, I just didn't know what I should be doing with queens. I guess it should be a 4-bet. And in this case, I just call. Heads up, we see the flop, which is 8-5-4 all clubs. Womp womp. Nothing going for me here, but he checks it. And so I'm happy to do that. I check it back. The turn is a 6 of hearts and he leads now for 150, a little less than a third of the pot. And I'm just kind of skeptical about this. I don't know what kind of 7x holdings he would have, because he is a good player, in my opinion. I think he's playing well. If he just always checks that type of board texture on the flop, that's definitely possible, especially in a 3-bet pot. On a monotone flop, you're either going to bet really, really tiny, or you're just going to check out of position. So maybe that's just what he does 100% of the time, and he still could have a lot of good hands. So that's what I was thinking. But still, for only 150 bucks, I just couldn't bring myself to fold. I threw in the call, just hoping that he gives up on the river. The river comes out, and this time he thinks for a while before throwing in a purple chip, which is $500. And with the board pairing on the river, I feel like he could be value betting aces, kings, flush. If he 3-bet me with ace-5 suited, now he has trips. So I'm not really looking to be a hero, and I lay it down. Not as buried as we started it, only losing a little less than $200. So I'm happy to pick it up, go home, and try it again another day. And with that, it's time to rack them up and get out of here. That was a really fun one. That was a really wild ride tonight. In for about $2,000, out for $1,830. So only losing less than 200 bucks after getting stacked kings to aces feels like a win in my books. I still have a lot to brush up on in my cash game. I know that, but I'm working on that at the same time that I'm trying to work on my tournament game, start a live stream, and get our vlog making process down to a tease, down to a science, so that I can get as many videos out to you guys as possible this summer. I'm gonna have a packed schedule, poker pretty much every day unless I take the day off to make a vlog. So a lot of stuff coming up on the channel. If you're not subscribed already, go ahead and click that button, follow along, and I will see you guys in the next one. See ya.